units have to wait to come online for our populations. And it's another month that the construction costs have the opportunity to balloon even more. I would really ask that you guys consider your own ambitious goal making and familiarity with this project. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Nash, Asheville Housing Authority. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I just want to, the application that we submitted didn't have a slot in there anywhere to say grant, and I believe we've said it enough now, but I just wanted to reiterate that request. I believe that we took the $4.2 million grant that the county provided for the Lee Walker Maple Crest project and invested that wisely and came up with a beautiful new development. And we will do the same with reimagining Deed Review. It's important for for the housing authority itself and for all of our funders to have skin in the game in this project. And so all of us moving forward with a grant from the county would help our momentum with that project. And we already have a grant agreement with the county for $970,000 of ARPA funding. So the easiest way to administer this would be to add more to that grant for all parties concerned. And then the last thing, just in terms of the opportunity generally in our community, we have 4 approved tax credit projects approved by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency that are pending right now. I believe all of them are requesting funding from either the county or the city or both. And most of them have requested project-based vouchers from Asheville Housing Authority. So I hope you'll view all of that and take this unique opportunity to advance affordable housing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only one that has to lower the mic. So I'm April Burgess Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for Helpmate. I want to thank the Commission both for the opportunity to be here today and also for introducing a construction grant program into your offerings this year to be considered. As you know, Helpmate submitted an application for funding to expand our emergency shelter for domestic violence survivors. Right now, our shelter has 20 beds. The new program would expand us to 43 beds, which is critical to be able to reduce domestic violence, homicides, and homelessness caused by domestic violence. We know that domestic violence is the leading cause of homelessness for women and children, and that more than half of women and children who are homeless directly because of domestic violence. When we submitted our application to this program, we anticipated a $10 million build for our new emergency shelter. As everybody here knows, construction costs are ever increasing. Our latest cost projection actually takes our build to about a $14 million price point, which is a staggering price increase. And so while at the time of our application, our hope was to be able to shorten the duration and supplement our capital campaign, each of the funding asks that we have out now are critical to our ability to carry forward this project while keeping our capital campaign goal intact at about a $4 million price tag. So thank you in advance for your consideration and for your support of survivors in this community. It means the world to them and to us. Thank you.
My name is Sean Brady, Vice President of Development at Commonwealth, and I appreciate this opportunity to come before the commissioners. Thank you for your previous support for Fairhaven Summit. Appreciate your consideration for our final funding request. We are also in the category of shovel ready. We do have, I think, a final review. We've got a major site plan amendment before City Council tonight. But, you know, we're fortunate our construction pricing, since we're effectively permit ready, is holding. And we're also fortunate right now that our equity pricing is now actually above market in holding. And so, you know, we actually know what our funding gap is, which is, as everybody's talked about, that is the big unknown these days, is costs keep moving. So that's the advantage of kind of being in the permit-ready situation, is you know what your costs are, you know what your gap is, and you know it's not going to keep moving on you. So I appreciate this opportunity to consider this additional funding request, here for any questions, and look forward to getting Fairhaven Summit out of the ground and moving. Our 2021 9% award, and right now projected closing timeline, assuming we can close our funding gap, is July. So hopefully we're real close in the final stretch. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe the last.
It's good to hear everybody, talk about the importance of, the need for this housing, this extra funding. I am Steve Sarank about the Buckhead Health Foundation, here to talk about our application for the additional funding for the Redwood Commons Senior Building. Appreciate the extra efforts that staff, city, county, everybody's gone through to do these applications. It's the first time we've gone through it. It's been really, eye-opening to see just how you advocate for the housing, and the city in the beginning. We came to them and said, we're going to build a 49-unit building. They said, oh, we're going to get you rezoning. We want more units. And they did everything they could to push it through and really work with us. I don't get that often in other communities when I want to go in for rezoning or something, but I just want to say we really appreciate the efforts, and ours is 9%. So it's really critical to get the last bit of funding, or there's a good chance that the tax credits have to get turned back in, and it would be a disservice to everyone's efforts, and the people that really need the housing, with the way rent burden is affecting everybody, and the low affordability. So I just want to say I'm here. If I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Steve. All right. Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. Thanks for all your great work. All right. Next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes for March 28th.
Motion to approve the last meeting's minutes.
I think Commissioner Sloan said the motions to approve.
Do we need a second?
We do not have to have a second. So all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, they're approved. Okay. Okay, so next item under new business is the FY 22-23 Affordable Housing Service Program contract status update. And Jake's going to help us out with this.
Good afternoon. It is not lost on me. We have a lot to talk about, so I will go through this quickly. If we have questions, we can address them. So from fiscal year 2022, we have 2 contracts that are still open, and that is with DFI. They would be related to the pre-development services for Ferry Road, and also the housing feasibility study that are looking at the 3 selected county properties. They have drawn down half of their contract, and it is still ongoing. We also had some unexpended funds. So ABCLT had $25,000 from a New Start program that were not spent, and that was reallocated to DFI in FY 2023. And then we also have $4,367 from Elida Homes that were unexpected and can be reallocated in this upcoming fiscal year 2024.
All right, great. Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Anything else on this item?
We have the 2023 contracts too.
Okay.
So we have 2 open contracts. They are both emergency repair contracts for Habitat for Humanity. They promised to deliver 45 homes with $250,000. Of those, they have repaired 28 so far and drawn down $180,000. And they have 34% of their funds open. For Mountain Housing Opportunities, they are to deliver 24 homes for $225,000. They have spent $72,000 and repaired 10 homes to date, and they have around 68% of their funds available. We also have some unexpended funds from Fairhaven and Maribel that could be reallocated to FY 2024.
Okay. Any questions?
Questions?
All right.
Thanks,
All right,
Jake.
thanks, Jake. Okay, moving on. The next item is consideration of the FY 2024 Affordable Housing Service Program project recommendations. So, Matt,
Yeah,
we're
I'll
going to
just
start.
jump in really quickly and then we'll get right to the meat of the meeting. So this is the list of all the applications we've received. You can't even see it on the screen this time. We received over $23 million in funding requests to support almost $200 million in project cost. For the benefit of the audience, maybe those who haven't attended one of our allocation meetings before, we're going to leave the PowerPoint and open kind of a workbook where you can make recommendations and we'll kind of live work on that together. Certainly as well, we can pull up any prior presentations or information about projects to get some additional detail that isn't really readily available there. But with that, I will switch to the allocation workbook and we can start the conversation.
You switched to Parker.
Nice headshot.
That's a great headshot, Parker. Okay. All right. Well, before we launch, I just wanted to say thanks to all the different groups that put forward proposals. Very strong. I mean, I think it's the strongest group of projects that we've ever had before us in this cycle. It's a huge need in the community. So thanks to everyone for all the work that's already gone into all these different projects and programs. And thanks also to the staff, Grace.
Coming out.
And anyway, we appreciate all of the work that you put into reviewing the projects and the analysis of them, which helps us weigh in on these, really hard decisions that we have to make around the allocation of these dollars. We are so appreciative that the voters approved this $40 million in bonds, but in light of the scope of the need in this community, I think the folks in this room are aware that that's very significant, but in the context of the need, the need is much, much larger. And so, the challenge we have is how do we take these finite funds and help them go as far as we can towards achieving our public goals. And so thank you all for helping us in that work. Commissioners Sloan and Edwards, do y'all have any comments we make before we just kind of start weighing in on some of the, and we're just making, of course, we're making recommendations to the commission. None of these will be final decisions. All of this will go to the county commission for review as part of our overall budget process. But any comments or
No, just to really further echo, and I'm echoing myself, but to further echo Chairman Newman's comments, these were really incredible applications. Y'all made our jobs really challenging and the staff stepped in to make them a bit easier for us. So thanks to everyone. I'm excited to see where this goes and to know that we have some really incredible organizations here locally and others looking to develop here as well to really start helping meet our lofty affordable housing goals. So thanks to each and every one of you for what you do in our community every single day for affordable housing and to make sure that folks have a great place to live.
Okay, great. And so as we start going through some recommendations, I just want to also recognize that some of these projects have already received previous funding from the Affordable Housing Services Program, and there are additional requests there. And some have also received some ARPA funding. So as we talk about the numbers, I just also want to ask the staff to make sure we're clear on when we talk about a number, if that's like an additional number or a total number that would be coming from the Affordable Housing Services Program. In other words, basically folding in the previously approved amount into a higher amount, which would be the new total amount. So if we start throwing out numbers, let's make sure we check that so we're on the same page in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start making a few recommendations and to kind of get the conversation started. But all of this, of course, completely open for discussion, modification, amendment, but get something on the table. So the first recommendation, there's a couple that I'd like to recommend that we are certainly not saying we're not supportive of them, but it may be a little bit of a different process for how we look at them. So there was a proposal from Homeward Bound regarding funding for coordinated entry work. And this is a topic that the whole commission is very interested in. We're sort of looking at our overall strategies around homelessness solutions. We're adding additional county staff as per some of the recommendations that have come to us. So on that item, I'd like to make the recommendation that we basically forward this request to the overall county commission for consideration in our budget process, along with some of the other homelessness solution issues that we're looking at, because I think that this is a topic that the whole commission is very actively involved in, and so we'd like for them to look at that as part of the overall efforts there. So, and then the other one that's kind of maybe a little bit different is related to the Mountain Housing Opportunities down payment assistance proposal. And as we've been talking with the county staff about this proposal, we've heard some ideas around how we might be able to be supportive of that proposal, but in a little bit of a different way than simply appropriating additional dollars, and that we have an existing down payment assistance funding that's been invested, and which we get repaid over time, and there's an opportunity to redeploy those funds into support for the proposal that was submitted to us. So Matt, could you comment on that a little bit more? Because those sounded like some, promising strategy. So I think there's interest in supporting it, but maybe a little bit along those lines.
Sure. The down payment assistance loan, the issue really arose from the review of the application, and the request from MHO was to actually have funding provided or given to them that they could then hold and deploy as down payment assistance. Our program design is really that we are the lien holders, so we can deploy the funds, but repayment is due to the county. And so the application and our offering really didn't align well. The county does have a history, however, of taking down payment liens that we hold and reassigning them to MHO, which allows them as a CDFI to leverage the asset potential future revenue to go out and acquire additional DPA funding, which is something that we as the county can't do. So by allowing them the potential to receive future revenues, foregoing our ability to do the same, they can actually go out and redeploy that funding to acquire additional down payment assistance. So that would be a decision that the board would make, because you are, the full board would have to make that decision, because you're going to have to forego a future revenue. So we have been in conversation with finance to confirm kind of like how you would process that in legal, and we would have to bring that as a separate item. I feel like that could be a reasonable way to respond to the request and not also acquire some additional down payment assistance funding for the community.
So if there's support for that on the subcommittee, so there'll be a motion made at some point here, and this would be a little bit different than just a financial recommendation, but if we could have that as part of the motion to forward that recommendation on to for consideration by the commission, based on the staff proposal that would be developed.
That makes sense.
Okay. Great. Okay, so so I'd like to start off with the three proposals that we had regarding the emergency home repair programs. So these are programs that have also received support through previous affordable housing and or ARPA resources. So these are additional housing services program funds in addition to the previously approved. So on the Habitat proposal, 250,000, Collaborativa La Milpa, 100,000, and the Mountain Housing proposal, 225,000. Okay. On the Evelyn housing assistance proposal, $110,000. On the Elida Homes proposal, $15,000. On the ARC proposal, $25,000. On the on-track proposal, $40,000. Okay, and then moving to the new construction proposals. On the on the Housing Authority request relating to deed review. So the county has made an existing commitment of ARPA funding in the amount of $935,000. So the number I'd like to put forward for consideration would be an additional amount above and beyond the ARPA funding of $1,564,740. Okay, on the Star Point project, $500,000. On the WDT proposal on Old Haywood, $500,000. On the Fairhaven Summit proposal, $1,235,000. I'm sorry, let me repeat that, $1,235,000. On the Redwood Commons project, $1,826,000. On the Maribel project, $8,468,195. And on the Lakeshore project, which had, oh, let me clarify. So on the LDG project on Maribel, the county previously committed $1.5 million. So for clarification, this is not an additional 8.4 million, it's a total of 8.4 million. So it's revising the 1.5 million up to 8.4 million. Okay, on the Lake Shore project, the county had a previous commitment $3,263,847 as an ARPA grant. So recommendation for an additional $2.6 million. Okay, I want to make sure, I'm just kind of jumping around on the list here, but I want to make sure I address each of the LIHTC proposals. So that we address the deed review, Star Point, Fairhaven, WDT, Redwood Commons, Lakeshore, and Maribel. Right, so right. Okay, all right. So those, I want to put those forward for discussion and consideration. Further discussion, questions, comments?
So I
I
do
guess
want
one,
to, oh, go ahead, Parker.
go ahead, Amanda.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just one, I don't know if this is a comment or a question or a thought on, and it's really been, on me and us to investigate further, but with deed review, I was interested to learn more about, I guess, the master plan for that property and the city's vision for that project as well, and just get a little bit more information about the kind of the long-term goal and vision for deed review. So that would be something of interest to me to learn more about as we proceed with this process and these recommendations.
Okay, Sure. David, would you want to comment on that just briefly? So this is positioned as a phase 1 proposal. So if you want to just comment a little bit on the future phases, future redevelopment.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do plan as soon as we begin phase 1 to complete a master plan for the rest of the deed review, the Housing Authority's deed review parcel. Our ultimate goal there is to build up to the capacity of the property under pre-existing zoning was 16 units per acre, so a total of 320 units. And we would like for some of those for them to include affordable rental, but also include some affordable home ownership. We have not completed that process yet, but we do plan to start that as soon as we get started with construction or wherever we end up with the fundraising this year. We're going to have the architects work on that. That's the current plan. The city also owns 40 acres nearby there, and we had talked with them in the past about potentially master planning that. Those conversations were put on hold about 1.5 years ago, but I assume that the city is still planning at some point to do some kind of master planning for that neighboring parcel. I won't speak for them though in terms of exactly what that would be.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I normally don't, want to make a practice of specifically explaining how I came to some decisions on this, but I do want to specifically and publicly address the Helpmate decision today. Where I was coming from is I think there's an incredible opportunity from the other professional hat that I wear in our community for our philanthropic community to come forward to support this capital campaign. And I would like to see the generosity of our community to support that, and then the affordable housing dollars be considered when we know what that actual gap is going to be from where our community decides to support the shelter. I'm not saying no. I'm saying let's see what our generous community does, and then we can fill in from there.
Commissioner Sloan, do you have any other comments, questions, thoughts?
I'm thinking, I don't think I do, Brownie. Just one thing that comes to mind, when we were talking in the beginning, providing comments in the beginning about, all these applications, they're all fantastic. And, as it relates to the bonds, we told ourselves and we told the community that the bonds would attract a lot more applications and better applications. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And so that's great news. And to me, it's really to meet our goals. To me, it's these 4% LIHTC projects that are so important, that we need to continue to lift up, and that we need to, continue to see more and more applications for. So those are my high-level thoughts.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments?
No.
One other set of decisions that need to be made. So there are several different potential sources of funding. The county has affordable housing services program funds that are appropriated as part of our budget process. And then we have bond funds, and then there's also been some ARPA funds allocated. So I'd like to make a couple of suggestions, and we don't necessarily have to resolve 100% of those questions today. The most important thing is that we decide on some recommended funding levels that can move on for consideration by the county commission. But I did have a couple of suggestions I wanted to make regarding the bond funds. So all along we knew that to start doing some of these 4% projects would require bond funding because the projects are larger, they require more investment. Any of them could easily outstrip the total funds we have available in our typical Affordable Housing Services Program funding. So those in particular, I think makes sense to recommend appropriation of bond funds for. So I'd like to include in the recommendation that the Maribel and the Lakeshore funding both be sourced from the bond funds. Okay, and so if and with Maribel, if Maribel receives bond funding, that means that the previously appropriated 1.5 million in Affordable Housing Services Program funding actually becomes available for something else, right? Because it would be all, we shouldn't, it would, where possible, we should use a consolidated funding source instead of mixing different funding sources. So just to note that if we do the 8.4 million in bonds, there's 1.5 million of Housing Services Program funds that become unallocated. And the one other question I would in particular suggest that we defer consideration on from today. So the as David pointed out, the previous county funding for the DVB project was from ARPA. It could be funded. There is some unallocated ARPA funding, but there are other alternate requests that are also before the county for utilization of those funds. So I guess the recommendation on that would be that we not make the decision today about which source of funds. It could be ARPA funding. It could be Affordable Housing Services Program funding. So but I think we would need the larger commission and staff to weigh in on that question about the potential utilization of ARPA, because there are other totally non-housing related proposals that have been submitted to the county too. So it's not exactly in our jurisdiction to completely speak for how those funds would be allocated. If I've done some of the math on this right, then maybe our staff could help us on this. If we did the two 4% projects, as well as the Buckeye Community proposal on Redwood Commons and the WDT proposal, if we utilize bond funds for those, I believe everything else could be funded from the Affordable Housing Services Program funds available. So maybe staff could look at that and see if that's
really
mathematically
close.
correct.
That's really
Okay.
close. I'm trying to go back and forth here.
So there are a couple of ways that we can look at this. I'm trying to make it, so let's. So funding wise, the general fund transfer request, which is part of why we make these recommendations in April, is 2.311845. That's a flat level of funding commitment that's been sustained. So that is available, as well as 2.5 million associated with projects that need some additional funding that can be reallocated. So available to identify projects for. It may be easier to just think about that as a 4.811 million, right? Because it's a combined prior year award. So I'm just going to collapse these into a single column so we kind of think about these projects as if. So really between prior year available to reallocate and associated with the Maribel project and Fairhaven Summit was 2.5 million available. And then the request from the general fund of 2.3 million was 4.8 million to allocate in the Affordable Housing Services Program. If you just want to think about it kind of holistically, we can negotiate out at the staff level if it's a reallocation from 23 or how to make that work. And so at the current, granted that we got this down correctly for you guys, I'm seeing 4,039,714 in non-bond funded projects, which leaves about 772,000 available.
Okay, and that would be under the assumption that the deed review funding came from Affordable Housing Services, which it may or may not. Again, there's ARPA funding that can be looked at, but again, the whole staff and commission will need to look at that. But that's in that scenario, is that right now?
I'm gonna check and make sure all the formulas are adding to it, just in case. I don't want any of that to happen. So, yeah, one slight adjustment. So, yes, 4,064,000, and that does include the 1.564 million for deed review. Given that there's uncertainty about whether ARPA funds, that would be a board level decision to put it in somewhere, without it being attached to the bond. It would kind of need to sit in the Affordable Housing Services Program with the caveat of consideration for allocating it another way.
All right.
Okay.
So there's about 750,000 available in the Affordable Housing Services Program between this year's request and last year's reallocation that you could identify. Other projects are moved, project back from bond funded into the move those around.
Okay. And I think that's a good thing,
that's
to
a good
have
thing,
some additional resources to work with this year, in addition to the bond funds that are available, which have more particular constraints around the potential use of those funds. Because they're bond funds, they can only be capital funds. There's things that we can't use bond funds for that we might need housing services program funds for. All right. Do the staff have any questions, or is there any aspect of this that needs clarification?
And I just, again, for us to make sure it's that we understand correctly, the 1.826 million is recommended to come from bond funds. Again, this will go through the budgeting process. For the Redwood Commons project, $500,000 for villas at Haywood, 2.6 million for Lakeshore Villas.
Okay, and just go a little bit slower so I'm sure I can follow. So say that one more time. 2.6
2.6 million for Lakeshore Villas.
of additional funding.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
From the bond funds, and then 8,468,195 for Maribel. So then the total recommendation to the board to consider allocating bond funds would be $13,394,195.
That's what I have.
Okay. I think that's right. All the math is going
Yeah,
to
I split them up.
Okay.
That's what I have.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the allocation decisions as presented.
All right, there's a motion. Further discussion. All in favor of the motion to recommend the funding allocations as presented, say aye.
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 All right, that's all right. Well, thank you all. Again, thanks for helping us get to this point. This now goes on to the county commission. We still have additional work to do. I mean, we are recommending allocation of some initial bond funding dollars in this cycle, of course. We have additional work to do to contemplate what the process is going to be for further allocations of bond funds. So assuming that these are approved, so that's a work in progress. So, all right, staff, let's see, next steps.
Yeah, so we are proposing, we thank you all for the number of meetings that you've held in the last couple months to get through the application process. We are proposing to cancel the May 2nd meeting, which will be next Tuesday. Staff will be attending the Bring It Home virtual conference as we take on a more active role in homelessness work here for the county. So we'll actually be in conference, and you all have led a lot. So we're proposing to cancel that May 2nd meeting and then resume our regular meetings in June, and likely having to look at our July meeting based on board calendar adjustments that typically happen in July as well. But the if there is pressing business that we need to attend to, we're happy to talk with an opportunity to meet on the second or later in that week. But again, most staff will be in the conference.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
All right, and are there any announcements? All right, thanks everyone for attending. This meeting is adjourned.
And thanks again, staff, for all your hard work getting us to this point. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.